Hi there, and welcome to my Brain Health Cooking Kitchen. I'm Diana Liz, and today I'm presenting a recipe that may be of importance to women 35 years of age and older. This quick, easy, delicious, affordable, and neurotrophic recipe is high in phytoestrogens. And you ask, well, why is this important? Well, that's because a woman's brain runs on estrogen, and estrogen begins to decline at about 35 years of age. In retirement, I work as a neurotech in a brain health clinic, and I also serve as a brain health coach. I do a qEEG on myself once a year to see how I'm doing. This last qEEG was a little disturbing. And I knew that my brain was on a downward trend and I needed to do something different to stop its decline. So the first thing I did was get some lab work done on my blood. And what showed up is that my estrogen level was basically 0. And that was why I was having such a difficult time with energy, mood, just well-being. And I knew that there was something going on with my brain. So I dove into the research, and I'm real excited about what I've learned. And I hope you will stay with me and learn about phytoestrogens. Those of you who follow me know that I read lots and lots of books because I want to get into the minds of the leaders, the pioneers today, so that I can take steps today to improve my health rather than I can't wait 20 years to improve my brain. And I read this book by Lisa Mosconi, and she has another book that I've also read on food for the brain. And Lisa is the director of the Women's Brain Initiative and associate director of the Alzheimer's Prevention Clinic at Weill Cornell Medical Center. And in this book, she says, a woman's brain runs on estrogen. And she has an amazing, short, very informative TED Talk. And let me see how menopause affects the brain. Today, I'm on a full dose of hormone replacement therapy, and I already feel a great shift, and it gives me hope. The other thing that gives me hope as I age is food. Food is medicine, and when we learn what is good for us, what provides the best for us, we can take steps, and so we're no longer helpless. We are taking charge of our health. What is the big deal of phytoestrogens? Well, phytoestrogens, I'm going to read my notes, are plant-based compounds that have similar effects to estrogen produced in the body. By binding to estrogen receptors, phytoestrogens can stimulate or suppress certain enzymes and hormones. They are believed to prevent or treat conditions associated with osteoporosis, hot flashes, mood. There is evidence that phytoestrogens prevent cancer, but this is very, very controversial. And phytoestrogens are generally considered safe to eat. The reason I bring this up is that we know very little about phytoestrogen supplements. We do not know if they are safe for long-term use. And if we need phytoestrogens from the time that we're 35 until the end of our life. Before you start any dietary changes, please consult with your doctor because phytoestrogens may not be good for you. Some of the misconceptions: your partner or male, or your children or your male partner are safe to eat phytoestrogens. Contrary to popular beliefs, there is no scientific evidence that phytoestrogen affects the male hormones. So they are safe for everyone in your family. And there are no dietary guidelines for phytoestrogens in the United States. The average daily consumption is between 20 and 40 milligrams of phytoestrogen per day. Daily intake in Asia is around 45 milligrams per day. And we know that there are many benefits that the women in Asia receive. They have a very low incidence of breast cancer, and some of that is attributed to phytoestrogens. I did not like the idea of tofu. And matter of fact, I have avoided tofu my whole entire life. But it is the number 2 phytoestrogen. Number 1 is flax meal, and number 2 is tofu and tofu-related products. So I went on a search to find recipes that I could enjoy. Now, that was the spiel on tofu, and I've watched a lot of videos. What I've learned is that some recipes require hard tofu and some require silk. And so it's very important to match the kind of tofu with the recipe. Tofu has water in it to preserve its moisture so it's not dried out. And we need to press it. And I held it over the sink and squeezed it just gently. And it began to release. And I did that when I took it out of the package before I set it on here. So I'm going to press it a little bit more. And now I'm going to slice the tofu into several sections. And I'm going to try and do 3. So I'm going to slice down, let it fall, and slice down and let it fall, and it's already falling apart. Okay, and we're going to slice one way, and then we're going to slice the other way. Now, this recipe is very forgiving. Some recipes, like my superfood cookie recipe, is not forgiving. The measurements need to be precise. This recipe, the measurements are very, very forgiving. And the recipe is for 4 servings, and tofu in the package was 5 servings. The portobello mushrooms, it calls for 3 portobello mushrooms. Well, in the store, they had packages of 2 portobello mushrooms. So luckily, that won't be an issue for this recipe. And so I'm cutting them. And some tofu, some brands stick together. This is not from my usual store, and I already see that it's not holding, the squares are not holding their shape. Nevertheless, it's going to taste delicious. So I have done that, and I'm going to put it in the pan. Mushrooms are a superfood. The fiber in the portobello mushrooms not only feeds your gut biome, they have their own probiotics. So you are ingesting probiotics at the same time. The mushrooms are extremely high in B vitamins, and this helps with mood and energy and everything that works in your body. And they're high in potassium, which helps lowering blood pressure. They're high in phosphorus, which helps with strengthening our bones. They're high in copper, and copper is needed for the immune system, but copper is part of the battery in your brain, the electrical process. You need copper, zinc, and sodium for your brain to work well. So this provides the necessary copper. Now, listen to this. This is important. Portobello mushrooms contain an antioxidant called ergothioneine that can only be obtained through dietary sources. And ergothioneine helps prevent oxidative stress and also reduces symptoms of depression, and anxiety. So this is important because as we age, these are things that can affect us. And I'm going to slice them thin, but not too thin. To make it easier to handle the mushrooms, I'm going to cut them in half. It will not affect the nutrition, but it will help handling them. The next ingredient is cherry tomatoes. Cherry tomatoes, like all tomatoes, are high in lycopene, and lycopene helps against UV radiation on our skin. So that's one of it. They're also high in vitamins A, C, and E. And E, we know, is very important for mood. They're high also in potassium. So I'm going to slice these in half. You don't have to slice them in half. I just like to do that. And I'm going to toss them in. Now I have, since we've got more tofu and more mushrooms than the recipe called for, I am adding 1.5 cups of tomatoes instead of 1 cup. These tomatoes look incredible, delicious. When you see color this vibrant, you know you are looking at nutrition. Now, the next I'm adding is basil. And basil is a herb that has been used in ancient traditional medicines. I do not like to put it in the my little chopper because it chops it too fine. And the recipe calls for 1 cup of basil. And in the store, you can't get 1 cup. And it's so expensive. I have dried basil that I can add to the recipe. From basil I have dried after our garden. Chopping this, not too fine, not too big. It's another one, and I'm going to add this. And feel free to add any other herbs that you find delicious. Because the tofu that I purchased had 5 servings, and the portobello mushrooms had 4, 2 and 2, and instead of just 3, this recipe is much larger. The recipe recommends 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of avocado oil, and I'll explain that in just a moment. While it's totally safe to cook with olive oil, I prefer not to, because we purchase cold pressed olive oil for the polyphenols. And the moment that we introduce heat, we begin to lose polyphenols. Avocado oil is more resilient, and I save the polyphenols to add at the end of the recipe. The recipe also calls for 3 tablespoons soy sauce, and that I'm not adding any more soy sauce. Soy sauce is, I never thought that it had any nutrition, but it actually helps to fight against allergies. It's high in sodium, and so I buy organic, low sodium. It still has about 700 milligrams of sodium, so it's still high in sodium, so we need to consume it with care. And I'm going to add this to the recipe. Now we've combined all of the ingredients, and I'm going to toss it, and hoping that I may move it into the casserole dish. Whoops. Now I'm going to try and distribute some of these tomatoes evenly and make sure that we have a mix. And that's it. Now we cover it with aluminum foil. We place it in the preheated oven at 400 degrees. I'm going to set the timer at 30 minutes. Well, I'm removing the aluminum foil and I'm going to just toss it a little bit and make sure that there's lots of juice down on the bottom and from the portobello mushrooms and from the cherry tomatoes. And I'm going to put this back in for 10 minutes. Since I did not use olive oil in the recipe, I'm going to serve the dinner with sliced olives, garlic stuffed olives, and a serving size. And always look at the serving size. The serving size is 2 olives. So I'm slicing 2 olives for me and 2 olives for Paul. Wait just a few minutes and the recipe should be ready. Knowing what I know today, I would have made different choices. Unfortunately, I didn't know. I didn't know the effect that having a hysterectomy would have on my brain, and that I would need to be taking hormone replacement therapy for the rest of my life, increasing my risk of breast cancer. But what I do today is I eat on purpose. I eat foods that can help me with the challenges of my genes and of my history. I hope that you will follow me and begin to learn all the things that you can do to empower yourself to have a healthier brain. It isn't necessary to eat everything organic in order to be healthy, but some products are more important to take the extra step and the extra expense. And one of those foods is soy. Most soy products are genetically modified. So if at all possible, try and purchase organic soy. And on your soy sauce, look for soy sauce that's low in sodium. Most soy sauces that I looked at on the shelf had 900 milligrams of sodium. The soy that I purchased has 700 milligrams of soy, which is still a lot, but it's still less than the regular soy sauce. So organic, non-GMO, and low sodium. Well, we had a wonderful dinner. I served the tofu and mushrooms and tomatoes over brown rice. I would have enjoyed a little more basil, and I look forward to preparing this recipe in the spring when we have our garden and I can use as much basil as I like. We have 3 servings left, and this will be helpful because I work late tomorrow at the clinic, so we have dinner ready. If you found any part of this presentation helpful, I hope that you will subscribe and share it with the people that you care about. I'm Diana Liz, and bon appetit for a brighter brain.